getting it. I'm getting it. That real shit. Post up and roll something. Get the club all night. Papa's loving my thug.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Crash the Canvas. I'm your host, David Mitchell, a.k.a. Dirty Mitch. And for the next hour or so, we're going to dip and dive into the world that was this last week in pro wrestling and sports entertainment. And got a couple shout-outs at the end, too. You won't want to miss that. So just tune in, strap on, get ready, and let's crash the canvas, shall we?
And I hit it right all night in that condo, getting money like pronto, sticking jabbing.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Crash the Canvas Podcast. I'm your host, David Mitchell, a.k.a. Dirty Mitch, and let's dip right into it, shall we? We're going to kick this one off with AEW. AEW came this week from Canada, first time ever. I believe both shows, well, Dynamite was live and Rampage was taped. I believe they were both from the same venue there in Toronto. Man, what a way to kick it off. You know, Triple H ain't the only one with no surprise debuts. Tony Khan had, one up his sleeve, and Renee Paquette, formerly known as Renee Young on WWE television, who's also the wife of current AEW World Champion Jon Moxley. Renee Paquette is now All Elite. She kicked off the show with another Canadian great, Christian Cage. Cuts a nice promo about Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus, who had a match following that with Luchasaurus coming out victorious. Then you had Wardlow and Samoa Joe, known as Ward Joe. It's kind of corny, but you had them versus two of the Gates of Agony, which is pretty cool. And of course, Wardlow and Samoa Joe come out victorious. And then come out the rest of the Gates of Agony, Brian Cage. Not sure who that manager is. Pretty cool. But Brian Cage and the Gates of Agony. And out comes FTR. And FTR, was like, well, these guys just worked. Can't ask them to come back in a couple days, which theoretically at a couple hours. So they challenged them to a match. A triple, a trios tag match. The Gates of Agony and Brian Cage versus FTR and who? Who? Shawn Spears. Ontario's own Shawn Spears returns. And I'll get into that. What was pretty cool about that match in a moment when I talk about Rampage. But so then you got the Acclaimed and Billy Daddy Ass. That's right. Scissor Me Daddy Ass. Billy Gunn versus Swerve Strickland. And Swerve, sneaky Swerve, swerved one out on the on Daddy Ass, and the fallout from that happened on Rampage as well. Real quickly though, it seems to me though sometimes with AEW that promo, when somebody comes out with a promo on Dynamite, that means they're going to wrestle on Rampage, vice versa. That's just my take on that. But now. Swerve beats Billy Gunn, right? And, okay, hey, man, Billy, Swerve got one on him. It's not like Billy hasn't got one over on somebody before in his career either. But the interesting part about that segment was Smart Mark Sterling and Tony Nese come out. And Smart Mark Sterling, here was the funny thing, though, is Smart Mark Sterling, as smart as he is, was dumb when he thinks that a copyright in the United States can't be enforced in Canada, I don't think. I mean, I don't know copyright laws. So anybody watching this or listening to this on Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music, hit me up and let me know about copyright laws, right? Because I sure don't need to be in my share of copyright laws with this show. But Smart Mark Sterling comes out and says he owns a copyright to this Scissor Me quote. I don't know if it's Scissor Me Daddy Ass or what, but it was a pretty interesting segment. And then you cut to a promo in the back with MJF, right? Loving to see this, right? He gets in, and then all of a sudden Stokely Hathaway comes out. Now, mind you, what was it, a week before when it was MJF and Wheeler Yuta, and at the end when after MJF legit tapped out Wheeler Yuta, right? No shenanigans, just a straight up legit tap out. Then Lee Moriarty of the Firm comes out, right? And attacks him, and you could tell it really pissed MJF off, right? So here we go with this technical stuff again. There we go. So when they did that, I think, the backstage segment was just off the charts, off the chain, right? Stokely Hathaway has, the Carlton Banks looking going, and MJF politely told him, hey, I'm daddy. I'm the man. You do what I say. You do it when I say and how I say it, right? So to that credit, and then he told him, get out. Burn out, move on. Could tell, you hear the dogs barking in the background, got my dogs today. Well, got my dogs every day. They're outside right now, so they're probably wondering what's going on, who daddy's talking to down there, right? And God damn it. So, sorry about those technical difficulties, guys. But he cut a nice promo, ended it with William, talking about William Regal. Be interesting to see what happens with that next week on Dynamite, because he wasn't on, the only thing he was in there on Rampage for Friday night was he was sitting up in the crowd with his poker chip, listening at Adam Page and John Moxley. Promo the rest of the night. And I think that's where he was on Rampage. But then, the Ocho, right? Chris Jericho defended and beat Bryan Danielson for the Ring of Honor World Championship. But there was a surprise twist to it, because Daniel Garcia, who has been, even though he's a member of the Jericho Appreciation Society, has always said, I want to be a pro wrestler, not a sports entertainer. And what happened? He is the one that cost Bryan Danielson the championship against Jericho. So, and they addressed that on Friday night on Rampage, and we'll get to that in a little bit, right? But then, to end Dynamite, the guy that said that it was so over, right? So over. Orange Cassidy. Yeah, the guy with the sunglasses, puts his hands in his pocket, right? He had a stellar match, right? And I mean stellar match with Pac, that bastard Pac, for the AEW All-Atlantic Championship. And Orange Cassidy, through all the shenanigans Pac tried to pull, Orange Cassidy is your new AEW All-Atlantic World Champion, right? Which is going to segue into him and the Friends, the Good Friends, or whatever their group's called. They want to challenge the trios title. So we'll see how that unfolds coming forward in the future. And then you had Rampage kick off with the Blackpool Combat Club versus Butcher and Blade. And I want to say this about Butcher and the Blade. Man, if there was to ever be a true forbidden door, right? WWE versus AEW, right? I would love to see the Brawling Brutes versus Butcher and the Blade. That would be money, right? And then after that match, you cut to the Blackpool Combat Club, consisting of Claudio and John Moxley, are the ones that beat Butcher and the Blade. Then you cut to a backstage segment with Keith Lee and Sneaky Swerve, where Keith check the shit out of Swerve Strickland. Let's just put it like that. And Keith was visibly upset about Swerve's actions, last week against the Acclaimed and Billy Gunn, and then walked off from him. Could that be to me, Keith Lee is kind of a face teaming with the, wannabe heel, but I think you're going to eventually see a Keith Lee, Swerve Strickland move. Keith Lee versus Swerve Strickland. I would love to see Keith Lee versus Wardlow. I want to see Keith Lee in there with the big guys, right? I know he can carry the little guys. You look and see what he did at NXT Black and Gold. That dude is that dude is money, right? But then you had the Jericho Appreciation Society, and coming out there, and Daniel Garcia. Daniel Garcia is explaining. He said, all my life I wanted to be a pro wrestler, when I was really just a sports entertainer. Kind of laid out the line of why he did what he did on Wednesday night on Dynamite against when it was Jericho and Bryan Danielson. But then, as Ocho is said he's going to do, he said he's going to run through all the former Ring of Honor World Champions. And you got to go look at the list of that. I mean, you got the likes of CM Punk still out there. CM Punk, Samoa Joe, Jay Lethal. Not sure. One of the Briscoe brothers was Ring of Honor World Champion. But then, so you're kind of wondering who's next. Well, out come Dalton Castle, the Peacock King himself. And I tell you what, you might not like his gimmick. His gimmick might annoy you at times, but that dude can work and move in the ring. And when him and Jericho face, I believe it's going to be on Dynamite on Tuesday. Not sure why Dynamite is going to be on Tuesday this week. Wasn't really given any reason. If there was, I didn't hear. I'm assuming with this time of year and the Atlanta Braves are in the playoffs that it has something to do with the baseball playoffs maybe. Not sure. We'll see. They might allude to it next week and next Tuesday on Dynamite. But so then you had kind of an interesting thing, and I thought at first when it first was taking place, you had weeks ago Nyla Rose, quote unquote, stole the TBS championship, right? She's never faced Jade Cargill, to my knowledge. Definitely never had a title shot. Jade's undefeated. So now Nyla and the Vicious Vixens, led by Vicky Guerrero, are prancing around as Nyla is the TBS champion. And even they showed some interviews and vignettes with Nyla with the belt. And so anyway, Nyla come out and she had a match against Anna Jay. And of course, Nyla won. And at the end of that match, Vicky holds up a sign 1-0. Well, then out come the baddies. Jade Cargill, Layla Gray, and Kiera Hogan. And Jade meant business. You could see by the way when she walked in and walked the aisle, Jade meant business, right? And Kiera Hogan and Layla Gray tell her, hold on, we'll go get this. Well, they had I think like 4 security guards kind of guarding the aisle, boy, girl. And Jade gave that look like, hold on, I sent you bitches down here to fucking get this shit, and let me do it myself. So she came down, she like a bro kick, one of the referees, and just started kicking and punching, and but in the middle of that chaos, Nyla and the Vicious Vixens sneak back up to the top of the ramp. So it's going to be interesting to see when they're going to have that match and where. But I tell you what, I think it'll be pretty good. But the match, I'm just going to be honest, the match I want to see in the AEW women's division, and it's going to take, some healing. But as soon as La Mera Mera, that's right, Thunder Rosa, as soon as La Mera Mera is healthy and she comes back, and, her and Toni Storm face off, because Toni Storm right now is the interim AEW Women's Champion. But La Mera Mera Thunder Rosa is your legit AEW Women's World Champion. You know what I want to see? Hopefully she's healthy enough to be back by then. But at Double or Nothing next year, I want to see La Mera Mera versus Jade Cargill. you pick the stipulation in a cage. I don't want no outside interference because I feel like if they have it and they have a nice program, the baddies interference by the baddies would distinguish it. But can't wait. Also, special shout out to Thunder Rosa. Get well soon, Ma, and always love you. Especially love listening to you on Friday mornings on Busted Open Radio on Sirius XM, channel 156, you and Dave LaGreca. You always got to keep my good buddy Dave. Dave's a good friend of mine, and I'm going to give a special shout out to Dave at the end of this episode. But, man, love you on Friday mornings. Thunder, get well soon. Continue to get better. And if you guys live in South Texas, man, check out Mission Hills Pro Wrestling. Man, you want to talk a nice company for women's wrestling, man, go check them out. That's Mission Hills, Mission Pro Wrestling. Then you had, now you had an interview, a promo on Wednesday night on Dynamite with Ethan Page and Private Party and Matt Hardy. And Ethan Page basically laid it out, told Isaiah Cassidy of Private Party, if you beat me, you guys are good to go. I'll leave y'all alone. But if I win, and when I win, not only will I own the contracts of Private Party, I'll own the contract of Matt Hardy. The firm will. So, you fast forward to Rampage on Friday night. Ethan Page delivered. And love his finishing move. Right? Yeah. I had to pull it out. You guys on radio, you guys listening to me on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon Prime, you can't see it. But for those of you guys watching me on my YouTube channel, I've got the Intercontinental Commemorative Razor Ramon belt, right? And Ethan Page uses the Razor's Edge. And not sure what he calls it, but man, that was awesome to see. But yeah, so it's going to, he beats Isaiah Cassidy, and now the firm owns the contracts of not only Private Party, but Matt Hardy as well. Could we see a return of Broken Matt? Maybe. If we do, delete, right? Then you had the show closed out with a trios match with Brian Cage and the Gates of Agony versus FTR and Shawn Spears. The coolest freaking thing about that match. Oh, it's a fire match. Anything that FTR touches is gold. I mean, they could go out in a cow pasture and touch a pile of cow shit, and it's gold, right? That's how good these guys are. They are over with the fans. They're good, sound technical in the ring. They kick ass. They show up. They show out. They give the fans their money's worth of what the fans want and what the fans want to see. And that, my friend, is, speaks volumes in today's wrestling world and the way things are perceived. But FTR and Shawn Spears beat Brian Cage in the Gates of Agony. But the coolest thing about that match, right? You got to go back and watch it. But Shawn Spears, you want to talk about paying homage to Canada's own, the Hart family. And I'm talking about the Hart family, the Dungeon, Owen Hart, Bret Hart, anybody that, fell under the moniker of the Hart family. They paid tribute to them, right? Shawn Spears had, basically Hart Foundation trunks on, knee pads, and I think his boots too. FTR on their knee pads, on a little spot on their trunks and their boots, paying homage to the late Owen Hart and to the Hitman Bret Hart, rightfully so in Canada. That was pretty cool. Thought was, that was going to be the end of it. It was going off the air, but then the kingdom arrived. I said the kingdom arrived, right? That kingdom consists of Maria Kanellis, Mike Bennett, and Matt Tavern. Now, before I speak, let me pause that thought for a moment. Mike Bennett is one real son of a bitch. And I mean that in a good way. Mike, if you ever get a chance to watch this, see this, somebody tips you off this, whatever, I love you, bro. Mike Bennett, if people that don't know, go follow Mike Bennett on Twitter, right? Mike Bennett is one real guy. He, supports mental health and mental health awareness. If you're ever in a need dealing with something and need somebody to talk to, right? Mike Bennett's your guy. Of course, there's all kinds of different ways. But I tell you what, I was dealing with something myself last week, as I do a lot. And I'm a man. I'm here to tell you, men hurt. We might look fine on the outside, but we hurt on the inside, right? And I hit Mike Bennett up on Twitter. He DM'd me, sent me his phone number. I have it right here on my phone. Now I'm not gonna display his phone number. If you want to get involved with Mike Bennett and you know what he does to help with mental health awareness, hit him up on Twitter. But Mike Bennett, man, thank you, bro. I really needed that last week. You really don't know. But anyway, back to the task at hand, so to speak. FTR, are the current Ring of Honor World Tag Team Champions. They're also the current AAA Tag Team Champions. They're also the current IWGP Tag Team Champions, right? I think they got two different divisions of IWGP because, the Japanese do it a little different than we do in the States when it comes to far as titles and recognizing stuff, right? And, but anyway, the Kingdom are legit two-time former Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions. Hey, I give it to them. Hey, that's going to be a hell of a match. That's a match. That's probably, as it stands right now, of what I know what's been already advertised for next week's AEW shows. That Kingdom versus FTR match for the Ring of Honor belts. Hey, I'm sold. Book it, bro. I'm ready. I'm stoked, right? So I'll give AEW this week 2 thumbs up. No flag for AEW this week. They hit on all cylinders. They probably a few technical things that could be done better, but hey, it's live TV, right? You don't get to edit live TV. So big shout out to AEW, all the guys and gals that work for AEW. Hopefully everybody ended the week safe and went home to their husbands, wives, and kids safe, same way that they came, got there, right? That's the goal. You want to leave just as your body and your mind the same way when you got there. So big shout out to AEW. Like I said, major shout out to the real Mike Bennett. And like I said, go follow him on Twitter, and you'll see what I mean when it comes to about his support of mental health awareness. And not only is he there for the guys and gals of the wrestling industry, right? He's there for the general public. Anybody in the world that needs help with mental health and needs somebody to talk to, man, please seek out help, man. Like I tell my sons all the time, I would much rather listen to your problems than read your obituary. Think about that. You know what I mean? So, anyway, real quickly, before we get on to this week's WWE news from Raw and SmackDown, I do need to give a couple shout-outs real quick. If you're into coffee, as I am, and I love coffee, anybody that knows me knows that I'm down for a good cup of coffee, right? And there we go. Anybody, so go check out richportcoffee.com. That's richportcoffee.com, right? And check out, click in the drop-down box and get you some hardcore coffee, right? You can get it in already ground, or you can get it in the bean form, right? But richportcoffee.com, get the drop-down box, hardcore coffee, and get you some coffee from the innovator of violence, the landlord of the House of Hardcore, and future Hall of Famer, Tommy Dreamer, right? Go check him out. Support Tommy Dreamer. Support Richport Coffee. That's richportcoffee.com. Click the drop-down box and select hardcore coffee. Also, need some hot sauce in your life, need some sauce in your life, and want to do some LAGRECA shit after you get it? Go check out LaGrecasRage.com. That's LaGrecasRage.com, and get you a bottle of that Dave LaGreca hot sauce. pick you up one for the shelf. Get it it comes autographed from Dave himself, and also have one for the cabinet. That is LAGRECAsRage.com. Also, if you guys checked out my last week's episode where I showed you the tumblers and the 20-ounce steel tumblers with the Bluetooth, go check out Promise Printing by Angie. That's Promise Printing by Angie. Eventually, I'll get smart enough how to post the links in the episode. But for now, go check her out on Facebook. That's Promise Printing by Angie. Man, she does some awesome work. She's a good friend of mine. She delivers. She'll work with you. If you're not satisfied with something, she will make it right. She's not going to be one of these, what you pay is what you get. No, she's going to make it right with you and keep you coming back. She not only does tumblers, she does shirts, banners, stickers, business cards, you name it, you can get it, right? If you got your own image you want put on there, a custom, that's fine. Or if you want to get, you have a picture of something, it doesn't matter. But check her out. That's PromisePrintingByAngie.com. Also, if you're in the Wichita, Kansas listening area or viewing area, and you ever find yourself in a pickle, man, check out the guys. Check out the guys and gals at WichitaBonding.com. That's Wichita Bonding, right? Bail bonds done different. That's area code 316-833-8506. Man, if you're ever in need, they not only do bail bonds, they do interlock, they do house arrest. So if you're ever in a pickle, which I hope none of you guys ever are, you're in the Wichita, Kansas area, man, check out Wichita Bail Bonds, right? So I keep saying .com. Why do I want to say that? It's Wichita Bonding, right? Wichita Bonds. Like I said, their area code 316-833-8506. And the guys, Angel, Liz, Ryan, and the rest of the guys and gals at Wichita Bonding, love you. Anyway, so now we move on to WWE, right? And boy, what a way to kick off. And this is the, the season premiere kickoff. I don't know why they're doing that. I think it's a network thing now where they say, season premiere. But they kicked it off with a backstage segment, which was pretty freaking awesome, if you ask me. A backstage segment with DX. But the cool thing is, they're all old. Let's face it. I'm not sure who the youngest of the group was, but I can guarantee you, I think X-Pac might have been, right? I think they're all over 50, maybe even 60. I mean, Shawn Michaels and, hey, but they entertained you for a lifetime, right? And they kicked it off. It was a pretty cool backstage segment. Triple H in the boss role, right? Telling them what they can and can't say. And then Road Dogg, we can't say penis? And he's like, no. And then you hear, I think they bleeped out what X-Pac said, but you hear him say, oh, fuck. And of course, Shawn goes, you got him saying penis and him saying fuck. God, awesome DX segment, right? Kind of classic. I kind of felt that the DX appearance at, I believe it was Raw 1000, right, was the best reunion yet. Not to take away from, I'm an old school guy, love some DX. DX is the greatest faction of all time, hands down. And there's a long list, and I'm going to catch hell in a later episode, when I do my top 5 factions of all time. But I can tell you what, DX is head and shoulders above the rest, in my opinion. And you have to catch that episode coming up later on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music, wherever you can get your podcast. And if they don't have Crash the Canvas on your streaming device, man, get with them. Say, man, we got to get this guy, man. This guy's pretty cool. He's entertaining. He's funny. He's, up to date. He's a people guy. Anyway, so let's get into Raw. The Bloodline segment, massive pop for the Bloodline. As always, they're in Brooklyn. Brooklyn was the home of the Shield, right? The Shield owned the Barclays Center. I don't ever remember seeing a bad segment with the Shield at the Barclays Center, right? So let's go there. So I don't ever remember seeing a bad segment at the Barclays with the Shield. Anyway, Sami Zayn stole the promo, in my opinion, as usual. You know, and they're continuing on with the dissension, so to speak, within the bloodline, Jey Uso and Sami Zayn, and that'll get more apparent later in this as I talk about what happened later in Raw and SmackDown on Friday night. But Johnny Gargano beats Austin Theory. Rey Mysterio beat Chad Gable, but then Dom comes down to confront Rey. Dom slaps Rey. Then Judgment Day appears and they jump Rey, right? Typical Judgment Day bullshit, right? Judgment Day cuts a fucking scathing promo, right? In the middle of that, out comes the phenomenal one, AJ Styles, who appeared like he was going to finally join the Judgment Day, right? He even got down on his knee and he hugged Finn Balor. But in the middle of that promo, he said something about needing family and needing brothers, right? And then as him and Finn are hugging, you couldn't see it, but AJ, you know, when the camera panned the other way, when the camera panned the other way, you couldn't see it, but AJ attempted to pull away from Finn Balor, right? And when he did, he said, "I'm not talking about you." And who comes out? But none other than the Good Brothers, returning to WWE. I'm talking about Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson, right? The original Bullet Club, right? The original Bullet Club. And the cool thing about it was, if you recall on one of my previous episodes when I spoke about Anderson and Gallows finishing up their time in Impact Wrestling, right? And they sent a tweet out about some unfinished business. So wasn't sure at the time what that meant. Were they going to go back to WWE? Or I mean, New Japan, as most thought? No, return to WWE and teaming with their brother, AJ Styles. And so what I'm looking like I'm seeing is what they're going to do is AJ and Anderson and Gallows. AJ and Anderson and Gallows versus the Good Brothers. Versus Judgment Day. I'm sorry. And I apologize to you guys for these technical difficulties. Not sure on what happened with my setup. Some things got moved around, which they shouldn't have been. But try to get you better on the next episode. So continue to bear with me on some of these technical difficulties. I'm learning as I go. I love you guys. Continue to like, support, share, comment, subscribe. Do whatever it is you got to do, right, to get Crash the Canvas as your podcast, right? Also, big shout out to my friends, Nation's Corner, man. All of those guys, you want to check out another podcast. It's pretty cool. Nation's Corner. Check them out every Saturday on YouTube, right? Like, share, and subscribe their stuff. Follow them on Twitter. Man, there's an awesome group of people, and they're not in one area. Nation's Corner, members of the Nation's Corner all across, we're all wrestling fans, and they're all across the United States. I mean, you got them Kansas, Oklahoma, New York, Maryland. I mean, just I'm sure California. I'm sure there's probably a Nation's Corner member in every state, and if there's not, we need to work on that, right? But big shout out to Nation's Corner, PW Front Row, RA Deadhead, Mongrovian Mike, Too Sweet Neil, Deb Housen, I Am Flair, who is Chris from Baltimore, Tony Justice. Love you, Tony. Big truck driver. Gotta have love for gotta have the same love for the truck drivers as you do your soldiers, your law enforcement, and your first responders. So and y'all stay safe out there in Baltimore at Celeb Fest, and don't do too much LaGreca shit while you're there. And Chris, who is I Am Flair on Twitter, Chris from Baltimore, hell of a find. Love that picture and love that magazine of ECW and that original ECW action figure of Bully Ray, right? And if you got to go follow her on Twitter and see this, it didn't say Bully Ray, obviously. It didn't say Bubba. It said, it did say Bubba Ray Dudley, right? But it had Bubba as in B-U-H, B-U-H. Remember when Bubba Dudley, right? Awesome. Awesome find. Man, I think you guys were at, second toys there in the Baltimore area. But anyway, check them out. Big shout out to those guys and gals. You guys stay safe out there and have fun as well. But now back into the work at hand. Then you cut to what was probably the lamest segment of the week, but was still an awesome segment. And it was Miz TV is a birthday segment, and out pops Loomis out of the cake, right? Now, the funny thing about that is afterwards, man, backstage, right, DX, which was at that time, well, at this time of this segment was X-Pac, Road Dogg, and Shawn Michaels. And so basically, he's laying out, why? Somebody do something about Dexter Loomis. So Road Dogg said, all right, next week, if you beat Dexter Loomis, he don't get a contract. But if Dexter Loomis beats you, he gets a WWE contract. So next week on Raw, should have The Miz versus Dexter Loomis, with Dexter Loomis's contract future hanging in the balance, so to speak. Be an interesting thing, pretty cool, interesting thing to see. Awesome segment though, man. Gotta love Dexter Loomis, and man, his look is awesome, bro. You want to talk about not breaking character right now? Man, of all the funny shit that he's been doing to The Miz, the fucker's facial expression has not changed. You want to talk about selling? That is selling the character. He's fucking straight-laced. I mean, kick ass, take no names type of guy, and pretty awesome. But then the shocker of the night, right? Now here's my thing. Let me real quick, because this with this that happened, this should have been the last match. Now they did close the show. They did close the show with a Sami Zayn, or not a Sami Zayn, but a DX segment, right? To close the show, which was obvious, but they let me fast forward real quick. Riddle beats Sami Zayn, right? And no interference from the bloodline, which we'll get into when we talk about SmackDown, but that's what Jey Uso was ordered, to make sure Sami won, right? And Sami didn't win, but Jey Uso could have helped him, but didn't, right? So that led to problems come Friday night on SmackDown, right? But the match that should have left the show was this: Bobby Lashley versus Seth Rollins for the United States Championship, right? And man, it was a hell of a match. And then all of a sudden, you hear the music of the alpha male of our species, Brock Lesnar. So immediately, I started like, what the fuck, right? And I thought it would have been a no contest after that, but no, Brock Lesnar. And see, so here I am thinking, man, is Lesnar going to be U.S. champion? What? Because to me, if that would have been the case, that would have immediately elevated that title to main event status. There's no way that wouldn't have. But no, bigger and better plans, because Brock interferes, cost Bobby Lashley the match. Seth Rollins is your new United States champion, which I think that's going to segue over into a continuation of his feud with Matt Riddle. I don't think that's over, and I think now that you have a championship involved, it gives a little bit more life to the story, because I think the story without a belt involved had run its course. So that'll be interesting to see there. But you had Brock Lesnar F5 and Bobby Lashley once, twice, maybe 3 times. I don't recall. I know he did it twice for sure. But which we're gonna get the match that us wrestling fans and MMA fans have wanted to see. And I think now that they have this quote unquote fight pit, right? Matches, I think that's where it's going to happen. That's what it's going to lead to. When and where remains to be seen. If it were me, I drag this. I would drag this fucking thing out all the way to Mania. You have a night one. Obviously, you're going to have whatever match Roman's involved in. Doesn't matter who he is. Rock, Cody, whoever. The Roman Reigns match at WrestleMania, whatever match he's involved in, will be the main event of day 2. But man, what a way to go out on day 1, right? Think about that. 2 legit bad motherfuckers. 2 legit badass motherfuckers that if they were on the streets in the alley and it was a shoot, a straight shoot, man, they could go toe to toe. That'd be like they would fight till the cows come home, right? But you have 2 collegiate wrestling champions. You have 2 collegiate All-Americans. You have 2 MMA. I think lastly one in Bellator title. I'm not sure. But Brock Lesnar, obviously former UFC heavyweight champion. They're both former WWE champions, right? So I've always wanted to see that. I've wanted to see that since day 1, since Brock came back and then Bobby came back. I've always wanted to see Brock Lesnar versus Bobby Lashley. Brock Lesnar versus Bobby Lashley in a regular match. I want to see Brock Lesnar. Because see, here's how they could go. They could go in a wrestling match first, right? Start with that. Now the next thing goes, let's go legit college wrestling. Let's legitimize that shit and go college wrestling and have a legit match on that one. Then your payoff will be in the fight pit at WrestleMania. Hey, that's just the fantasy booker in me. I didn't coin that phrase. I mean, I coined that phrase. I didn't coin that phrase. I just use it. But yeah, so that's how SmackDown, that's how Raw ended. Now when it comes to SmackDown was pretty cool. I mean, pretty kick-ass. And, in this Triple H era, you can see the differences, not just in name and channel, but you can almost tell a production difference, so to speak, in the way they approach SmackDown and Raw on each other. That's just my opinion. Anybody else sees or, assumes the same, man, leave a comment. Remember, hey, you can hit me up on, you can email me, dirtymitch417@yahoo.com. Hit me up on Twitter, show me State Goon. But they kicked off SmackDown out in the parking lot where it looked like Karrion Kross had gotten a car wreck, and then he's attacked by Drew McIntyre. It's kind of a little parking lot brawl. That'll play a factor to later in the night, is there was supposed to be a fatal 4-way between Ricochet, Sheamus, and Solo Sikoa to become the new number 1 contender for Gunther's Intercontinental title. And I thought all points would have went to Solo. We'll get into that in a minute. But then you had Kofi Kingston of the New Day versus Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn walks away with the win. Jey Uso does what he's supposed to from the orders of the tribal chief, Roman Reigns. And I acknowledge you, Roman. You are my tribal chief. And Dave LaGreca, you are my crown prince. But Sami Zayn, comes out with the victory. Now, then they skip to the back. And Rey Mysterio shows up to Triple H. Now, one thing I did notice is that quote-unquote office had the old school game Triple H symbol on it. But he's telling, basically Ray's telling him, man, can't do it no more. I'm not going to fight my son. You wouldn't fight your son, yada, yada, yada. He said, I quit. And I thought that was going to be legit, right? I'll talk about in later episodes why I think it's better, for Dominic to be a heel and Ray not to be on the same show. We'll get to that in a few episodes, in a later episode. But so then you had Braun come out and squash 2 local talents, which was no shame, no problem for Braun. But since the return of Braun Strowman, man, I've had this match visioned in my head. Right as Braun is, squashing these two local talents, enhancement talents, so to speak, the Nigerian giant Omos comes down the aisle in the crowd. And him and MVP stand there right at the corner, a la where Seth Rollins, when they was in the Shield, used to jump over. And Braun sees him. And, man, you want to talk about a badass match that could, I think, the Braun Strowman versus Omos program that they're kind of teasing us with will do wonders to put Omos over. He's already over, but, I mean, he hasn't been tested. He and a guy like Braun Strowman, oh, my gosh, right? So it'd be interesting to see that. You had Hit Row versus Phantasma. LA Knight won, come out with a nice promo. Now, here was the end. Here was the main event. Now, mind you, I said you had a Fatal 4-Way. The Fatal 4-Way was supposed to be Karrion Kross, Sheamus, Solo Sikoa, and Ricochet, and the winner become the new number one contender for Gunther's Intercontinental title. And then Karrion Kross gets, hurt by Drew McIntyre in that little parking lot brawl, so he's unable to compete. Who does he get replaced with? Mr. 619 himself, Rey Mysterio, right? And so now, fast forward through the match, who's the winner? You guessed it, Rey Mysterio. I'm going to give my insight on that on the next episode next week, why he was made number one contender and where they could possibly be going with this. I think it's going to be interesting as far as, either for Gunther, right, or Ray and his story with Dom. So that's going to be a pretty interesting thing. Then we close the show with the Bray Wyatt. Man, you want to talk about returns and awesome returns. In the 7 hours after Extreme Rules went off the air, the Bray Wyatt was searched or talked about on social media over 12 million times. That's awesome. He come out and cut an emotional promo, even brought a tear to my eye, so to speak. And, it's hard to tell. Is it work, Bray? Or was that legit? And then they cut to the screen. Everything went black. And they're doing all that, is weird. But I caught, if you go back and watch it, it's hard to see now. But when I caught part of it, I could have swore I'd seen an Undertaker silhouette. And what it seems like with that closing promo, that there's somebody other than Bray Wyatt himself is part of this Wyatt 6. Like, it's going to be interesting if they do have 6, or do the Firefly, do the Funhouse characters come to life and each character is somebody who would be the female? Almost certain. I wouldn't guarantee, but I'm almost certain one of them is going to be Bo Dallas, Bray's real-life brother, right? So that was an awesome thing. That was an awesome, awesome thing. But before we wrap this up, here we go again with that crap. Before I wrap this segment up, right, and this show up and let you guys get on to the rest of your day, evening, whatever. Bless it. Why does it? Okay, there. I now figured out the reason why that's doing that. Wow. Okay, learn something every day. Again, sorry for all the audio and technical difficulties, man. I'm doing this on a laptop, a webcam, a mic, and a sound box, right? I don't have $1 million budget, never claimed to, but I have a love for pro wrestling, and I'm going to talk about it. Speaking of love for pro wrestling, right? My wife and I this week, actually on the 23rd, we will celebrate our 23rd wedding anniversary. My wife's got to be the real MVP for putting up with me for 23 years, with all my shenanigans. But big shout out to my wife. Baby, I love you. And the crazy thing is wrestling is what introduced us to each other, so to speak. When we first met, I'm not going to go into the story, but when we first met, about an hour after we met, and she introduced me to her dad, what was he watching on TV? Monday Night Raw. I said, oh, man. He said, oh, you watch wrestling? I said, hell yeah. He said, handed me a beer, right? Well, this ain't a beer, but he handed me a beer, said, sit on down and watch it with me. And, I've been with my wife ever since. That's crazy. And that was 99. So for some of you guys might even been born. But anyway, with my love of pro wrestling, my son, and I love Busted Open Radio. I love Sirius XM. I got Sirius XM satellite radio in the car, and I have it on my laptop. I have it on my phone. I have that because for 18 hours a week, I can hear people talk about wrestling the same way I'd want to, the same way I'm talking to you guys, right? And there's been no bigger blessing than David LaGreca, right? And the coolest thing, man, my youngest son gifted me this for my anniversary. I'm going to play this for you guys right quick. Let's see if I can get this to play. Ugh.
David and Christina, happy 23rd anniversary. I think that's awesome. You guys are the best. And Christina, and I'm not sure if you know this or not, but David and I have become very, very good friends. Okay. Next time I'm out in Kansas, I'm going to have to visit you guys. So make sure if you're ever in this area, you reach out to me. But I think you guys are awesome. David is a frequent caller and a friend. He gave me that awesome TV championship title that I have here in my studio, in my office, which I absolutely love. And I really appreciate each and every time he calls. We may not see eye to eye every single time he calls, but I definitely love the contributions that he makes. And I hope you guys celebrate in a big way. I hope you do some LaGreca shit if you have the time to do it, because the anniversary is the perfect time to do those things. So just wanted to say congratulations. It's awesome. 23 years. That's definitely a milestone that long. And obviously you guys are very much in love. So you guys have an awesome day. Go and celebrate. Be safe. Love each other. And I'll talk to you soon.
That was Sirius XM's Busted Open's own Dave LaGreca. Right? Dave, thank you. I love you, brother. And I can't wait to get out to the East Coast, up to Jersey. Never been to Jersey. Would love to come out there and just sit out on the porch with you and Violetta and feed the critters and talk wrestling, eat some Andy Cap's hot fries, right? Let Violetta cook us some of those world famous pierogies of hers. But I love you, bro. I really do appreciate that. A lot of it gets lost on people and people like you in your position and celebrities. But that was an awesome gift from my son. You didn't have to, but you did, and I love you, Dave. Now, you did mention, before I go, I can't leave without doing this because you asked me to do some LaGreca shit, right? And I got some LaGreca shit that's on my mind right now that's kind of pissing me the fuck off. So I'm going to end this fucking show with a rant, right? And this goes out to you, the douche canoe. And if you don't know who I've been calling douche canoe for the last 3 or 4 episodes, I'm talking about you, Mac Fraud Cardona. Yeah, I called you a fraud because that's what you are, a fraud. You talk about, you want to give the audacity to say Bully Ray coming to the NWA's burying the talent there and burying the younger talent in the back. You, just by opening your mouth, are burying society, you piece of shit. And what I have, you got all this money. You got daddy's money, right? Right? Probably got Chelsea's money too, right? You and Chelsea and your dad, probably all 3 share a bank account. So now you and Colt Cabana, Scott Colton, have something in common, you piece of shit. But, you got all these belts. So do I, right? But I earned mine. I earned mine by busting my ass every day, by getting up and going to work every day, right? So I'll tell you this, Matt, you faggot, piece of shit. You know what I did? I got this. I didn't have to politic to the office in the back for a WrestleMania match to win this because my daddy was in the front row. No, you know what I had to do? I busted my ass for my family and my wife and my kids, and as an appreciation, a token of their appreciation, they bought me the greatest Intercontinental belt ever produced, right? Oh, you got another one? Right? I'll show you another one. This, my friend, worn by the current NWA World's Champion, Trevor Murdoch, formerly worn by a real World's Champion, Nick Aldis, right? You somehow politicked your way with Billy Corgan, probably told him Smashing Pumpkins was the greatest band of all time, which is pretty cool band, not knocking Smashing Pumpkins, but you politicked your way into the NWA, stole the NWA World title from Trevor Murdoch, right? Then when it come time for you to face a real man in Nick Aldis, oh, my elbow hurts. My elbow hurts, Billy. Right? You know what's crazy about that, douche canoe Cardona? Is I get up and go every day. I've suffered from tennis elbow for the past 15 years, yet I still bust my ass every day. I put that elbow brace on in pain through thick, thin, pillar to post. I go out there and I support my family, right? Just like Trevor Murdoch, Nick Aldis, and all those other real men, not the Cardouche family in the NWA. But you know what else? Hey, you better be lucky. You better, you should have been hoping that this NWA World Television title, the one that Tyrus just vacated, right? You should have been asking Tyrus, hey man, I'll trade you, right? Because you'll never see NWA Gold again without buying it, right? Because Tyrus has as much love as he had for this. He's got just as much love and respect for that 10 pounds of gold. Either way, at Hard Times 3, you're not walking out of there NWA's world champion. But I will say this. If somehow you can politic your ass off again, which I don't know who's a better wrestling politician, you or Hulk Hogan. Yeah. But if somehow you do walk out of Hard Times 3 with the 10 pounds of gold, I challenge your ass to fight Nick Aldis. You need a place and time? Check the Cotillion Ballroom, Wichita, Kansas, right? They got an open date. Or I challenge you to put that on the line. If you do walk out of Hard Times, I challenge you to walk into December 17th to the original ECW arena where you're getting ready. I really don't think you know what you got yourself into. And if you do, then that just shows your stupidity. But I challenge you, if you do walk out of Hard Times 3 with that title, I challenge you to put it on the line against Bully Ray, because then not only will Bully Ray be at December 17th, the new NWA World's Champion, he also has that Call Your Shot, and he will be the first ever dual NWA and Impact Wrestling World Champion. That's the fantasy booker in me. Book it. But Matt Cardouche bag, right? You're ducking me on the Twitter machine. You can't duck Bully. December 17th. Bully reigns supreme. And Matt Cardona, it'll be your death and your funeral, right? Mark my words. December 17th, ECW Arena. Well, that sound right there means that we're about to get up out of here, right? I want to thank everybody for listening on all your podcast platforms. That's Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Prime. If your podcast carrier doesn't have me, tell them you need to get the Crash the Canvas podcast. You still want to reach me? You can email me at DirtyMitch417 at yahoo.com. That's DirtyMitch417 at yahoo.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Show Me State Goon. You can also follow me on Facebook. Search for me, David Mitchell Jr. My YouTube guys out there on YouTube. My YouTube guys, like, share, comment, subscribe. Big shout out again to everybody at Busted Open Radio on Sirius XM satellite channel 156. Big shout out to Nation's Corner. Hey, I'm out, but just remember, be safe, have fun. I love every one of y'all. Be kind to one another, and always remember, if you're gonna crash the canvas. I'm out.
Making music my seed note. Still the true as my cheese note. He's exclusive, yeah, we can do this. As we pursue this, I need more. Reaping fruit as my seed grow. Teach the youth and my team pro. Keep it live, no need to hide as they try to find me like Nemo. And I'm beast, ho. Bring the pain to these streets, so get it on the floor and go do your thing, cause they all know. Hit the club all night. Boppers